Alright, what's going on, everybody? Jacob here, my Dolphins Syndicate. Didn't come out with a video for you guys yesterday after the win. We're trying to become more consistent. But it's Monday, and you know what that means. That means this is the 5 things that we learned in the victory over the Washington Commanders. So, number 1, Tua and Tyreek continue to be the best connection in the NFL. Tyreek Hill, 5 catches, 157 yards, and 2 touchdowns. If you look at where he's projected to be, he has to just get just over 100 yards per game for the remaining 5 games to finish over 2,000 yards and to break Calvin Johnson's all-time record for yards in a season, which, if you look at it, he's averaging 123 per game. So it's very realistic for Tyreek to get over 2,000. It was something that was kind of a little bit of a pipe dream at the beginning of the season, just something you say as something to look forward to, but it's very real. It's a very real possibility. He had those 2 touchdowns, both coming in the first half. The Washington Commanders just did not know how to contain Tyreek Hill. He did all that only on 5 catches, and obviously he had the 2 long touchdowns, 78 and like a 60-yarder for a touchdown. They completely played him entirely wrong, and we talked about how Ron Rivera, defensive guy, old school guy. Now, the NFL has really shifted away from defensive head coaches, from those old school guys, and he hasn't really been able to adjust too much to the current NFL. And we saw that he basically just said, we're going to make Tyreek Hill beat us. And Tyreek Hill beat them. He easily could have finished with 3 or 4 touchdowns if we continued the onslaught in the second half. We really took our foot off the gas in the second half and just coasted to victory. But there seems to be such a good dynamic between Tua and Tyreek. And I remember when Waddle was coming out. Now, I was on the fence with Jalen Waddle. He was coming off of an injury. There was Devontae Smith, who was the Heisman. There was Jamar Chase, who was the clear number 1 receiver. There was Kyle Pitts. So he was either 3rd or 4th as the guy that I wanted in. But a lot of Dolphins fans said that they wanted him because of the connection that they had at Alabama, the chemistry coming into the NFL. And while that certainly is something, chemistry can be built like that. It's 1,700 yards last year for Tyreek. He's the number 1 leading single season receiving mark for Miami Dolphins. It doesn't take a long time for good players to sync up together and play well together. Good players find a way to make it work. And it doesn't matter that Tyreek Hill is coming from Patrick Mahomes, never played with Tua before last year. The chemistry they have, they're on point. Tua is no longer underthrowing. That first touchdown, you could say it was a little underthrown, but either way, still ended up in Tyreek's hands and still ended up in a touchdown. He's got more confidence in that deep ball. He's gained more strength from the hip fracture from a few years ago. And I only see this connection getting better from here. And number 2, we are continuing to be undefeated against teams with a losing record. It is what it is. We are doing our job. And, you look at teams like the Dallas Cowboys. Now, they did take care of the Seahawks, and that was a team with a winning record at the time. But the Dolphins and the Cowboys, who obviously eventually meet up this year, we're just beating teams on our schedule, and you can't really do anything else besides that. Like, there is a real thing that we are 0-3 against teams above 500, but you're given the schedule you're given, the games you're expected to win. If you win them and you're a good team, you'll probably be in the playoffs. The most difficult game that we won is probably that Chargers game week 1, and then you go on that strong run, and we beat the Broncos, who now have a winning record, but at the time that we played them, they didn't have a winning record. So this is a completely different Broncos team today than it was back then. Look, yeah, we're beating up on bad teams, but there have been so many years as us Dolphins fans have sat back and watched the Miami Dolphins that they have not taken care of business, that they have not beaten the bad teams, that they would have dropped a game like that game against the Jets, that Raiders game, to make that defensive stand in the 4th quarter. 5 years ago, the Dolphins probably aren't winning that game. We're winning games that we expect to win, and we haven't overcome adversity to win a game against a great team. Now, we have the opportunity, 3 teams at the end of the year that I consider to be great teams, that we will be able to be given that opportunity to beat a good team before going into the playoffs, because the Bills now 3 games back. It looks like we have the division not on lock, but it would take a lot for us to drop the division at this point. We have 2 more cupcake games. You got the Titans on Monday Night Football, and we have the Jets. So, we could very easily be 11-3 after this stretch of games, which is what we asked for. And then the tests come back. But at the very least, the Dolphins are doing their job. Number 3, we got to see the real return of Devon Achane. He had 17 carries, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was a very traditional running back appearance from him. We've seen so much big plays from Devon Achane that's kind of what he's known for. That once a game, he's going to have that large run, usually for a touchdown, and that's where he stamps his moment on the game or on those big runs. But especially in that second half when the game was well in the hand, we just kept funneling him the ball, giving him reps, getting his legs back underneath him, trying to get him back into game shape. We ran the ball with him like 5-6 times in a row, just kept handing it to him. And he's a rookie, so if anybody's going to have the endurance, you'd hope somebody who's in their early 20s would. And he did, 4.3 yards per carry, got in the end zone twice, had 3 catches for 30 yards. It was a very effective day for Devon Achane. Now, he wasn't having a large role when the game was still in hand, when the game was still to be decided, which was it ever really to be decided? But in that first half, it was primarily Raheem Mostert. He got 43 yards and a touchdown, as well as a catch for 8 yards. Raheem Mostert is the guy that this offense wants to lean on, and when the rubber hits the road, Raheem Mostert is the one. But this team so badly wants Devon Achane to be. And, today, he's not back there to being that 1B or 2, depending on how you look at it. But he's getting back on that road. He's still a smaller guy, and I do have my concerns about injuries because he sustained 2 injuries this year. Both of them were on tackles, if I'm not mistaken. So that is a little bit of a thing that I was concerned about coming into the season, concerned about when we drafted him, that how healthy he's going to stay, because he is the smallest guy on the field most times he's out there. But the quick bursts, and now the ability to run between the tackles, which I never imagined being a thing. His longest run was for 15 yards, and that was, I think, directly up the middle. So that was a bright sign. See him get the majority of the carries. Bright sign for fantasy owners that have him, of course. And just further along his road to recovery. So I'm sure he's not completely 100% yet. But this offense is so different with him in the lineup. So many different options, so versatile. We see him lining up all over the field. And he's just another weapon to add alongside the host of weapons that we have. And this team is so much better with him in the lineup. I'm not going to make this one of my points. This is kind of just a little extra in there. I want to talk about Julian Hill for a second. 2 catches for 23 yards. It's not the stat line, obviously, just 2 catches. And I'm not saying he's going to take over Durham Smythe as a tight end 1, but he looked athletic. He looked like he was fighting for every single yard, and something that obviously we never had. Mike Gesicki never broke a tackle for us. Durham Smythe, you're not getting that from him. He's just going to catch the ball and run straight, not going to make a lot of moves. But Julian Hill, he's a rookie. He's been given his opportunities. Clearly the tight end 2 on this team. And I like the strength we saw. I like he trying to make guys miss, and you felt confident with the ball in his hand that he had a better chance of doing that than Durham Smythe. So I think, I'm not saying he's going to be the starter for this team next year, but I feel more comfortable with this tight end group with him, how we saw him play yesterday. Again, just 2 catches for 23 yards, but showed athleticism, showed some strength. Big guy, 6'5 plus, big body. So I like where he's at, especially if we sustain an injury in that tight end room. Have a rookie coming up like this. It's a position that we're not really strong at. So to see him burst forward like he did was a very welcome sign to me. Number 4, I think it's fair to say that the defense is finally fixed. Now, we're not going to get the media credit for the defense because the offense is so good, and the media has seen us give up 48 to the Bills. We've seen us give up 21 points in the first quarter and a half to the Panthers, 31 points to the Eagles. Not being able to get key stops against the Chiefs in that first half really what cost us the game. But I mean, you look just specifically since Jalen Ramsey came back, and Jalen Ramsey is the clear best player on this defense. Since he's been playing, which has been back since the Patriots game, he's only allowed 7 catches. Yesterday, had Terry McLaurin just completely locked up, 0 catches. Terry McLaurin never sniffed the ball yesterday because of how well Jalen Ramsey played against him. But you look at what we've done since he's come back in that Patriots game. On defense, we allowed 17 points to the Patriots. Technically, only allowed 14 points to the Chiefs because there was a fumble return for a touchdown. Raiders only allowed 13. Jets 13. Commanders 15. This defense has not given up more than 20 points since Jalen Ramsey's come back. And they're not going to get the credit from the mainstream media again because how the offense has played, and they've seen him be bad at times, especially how he played last year. But this is a legitimate defense now. Andrew Van Ginkel, I mean, have a day, son. What that first quarter was one of the best defensive performances. I'd compare that to Christian Wilkins last year against the Chargers. The impact that Wilkins had, he was in the backfield on every single play. He didn't get a touchdown like Van Ginkel had. Those instincts to he was a rusher. He was not dropping back into coverage, but he read the play, read that was going to be a wide receiver screen to his right, and instead of engaging with a tackle to try to get around him to the quarterback, he just sags back a little bit, gets in the passing lane, returns it for a touchdown. Easy days. I was so impressed by him. Jalen Ramsey, again, how he's playing. It sucks to see Jerome Baker go down. Now it brings the question, look, Shaq Leonard's still out there. We've never really been thrown into the hat for his name, but now we're still waiting to hear about Jerome Baker and the extent of his injury. Probably by the time I get this out, it'll be out. That's just naturally what happens. It's unfortunate to see him go down, but this defense, we knew this was going to happen. Giving up 34 points to the Chargers week 1, giving up 48 points to the Bills in week 4, and then some other shaky performances at times. We could chalk that up to Vic Fangio. This is his first year in the system. Completely different system than what we've seen in recent years. It's a lot more zone, a lot less blitz, and retain a lot of the personnel from the time where we were that man-to-man defense and a heavy blitz defense. So now with the adjustments, you figure that a smart guy is going to figure out how to get his defense right. And that's exactly what we're seeing with this Fangio defense. And it's getting hot at the right time. It's got a trial run against 3 bad teams recently. 13 points, 13 points, 15 points, 14 points to the Chiefs. And then it'll be a really good test once we hit the Cowboys, once we hit the Ravens, once we hit the Bills. This is a different defense in the first half of the season. It's a little less healthy with Phillips and Jerome Baker obviously going down for the season, but it's gotten better than when we had those 2 guys in the lineup. And number 5, as things stand, we are the number 1 seed over the Ravens on a tiebreaker based on percentage of in-conference games. The Chiefs lost, so we are officially a game above the Chiefs. They do have the tiebreaker against us, so we finished with a tied record. They will be above us, but for now, we are the number 1 seed. They are the number 4 seed. Jacksonville Jaguars still play tonight. The Chiefs have the tiebreaker over them as well as they beat them earlier on in the season. So if the Jags win, if I'm not mistaken, they do jump over us. Yes, they do, because we are 6-2 in conference. They would then be 7-2, so they'd have a half game advantage of in-conference play. Obviously, that just means we have more conference games left to play. So they would jump over us for now, have that number 1 seed. We'd be in the 2, followed by, I believe, the Ravens, then the Chiefs. The Ravens have that extra game. Oh, well, now it's not an extra game anymore, actually. So it is going to be the Ravens and the Chiefs. Ravens are at 9-3, just below us because of that tiebreaker. This is where you want to be. This is the best season of Miami Dolphins football that I have ever seen in my entire life. It's a very real possibility that we finish with the number 1 seed. I think it's all but guaranteed that we finish with the divisional crown for the first time since the late 2000s. The Bills, 3 games back. We did our job on our bye week. We knew that we just needed to continue to win. If they lose next week against the Kansas City Chiefs, it's very unlikely that they are able to come back, even if they went out the rest of the way. We have 3 games on our schedule that you could see us losing. If you say history repeats itself from earlier on the season, we lose those 3 games, including the game against the Bills, to the teams with winning records. That'd be 3 losses. If they lose next week to the Chiefs and we win against the Titans, and I assume we win against the Jets, we would then have that full 4-game advantage over the Buffalo Bills, and we would have the division on lock before we get to that game against the Bills. That game against the Bills would just be strictly for AFC seeding, and potentially that game could be a lot to the Bills to try to get into the wild card. So there'll be still a lot of incentive that last game of the season to kick Buffalo out, because look, as much as we want to play the best teams and you want to earn that respect, look, I'd much rather play the Denver Broncos. I'd much rather play the Cleveland Browns. I'd much rather play the Pittsburgh Steelers today than I would the Buffalo Bills. We control our own destiny. Don't necessarily control our own destiny for the number 1 seed. Again, as Jacksonville has that extra conference game. I don't know the tiebreakers beyond it, so I'm not going to pretend to get into it. So if we just continue to win, have that divisional crown, very strong chance that we will be in contention for that number 1 seed going all the way into the last game of the season. That's all you can ask for. That's all I'm asking for. I'm happy. I had a great time. We predicted that we were going to blow him out. We blew him out. It wasn't even close. He had 17 points at the end of the first quarter. They only scored 15 points. The game was over before it even started. We complete in total domination. I mean, with the defense, I didn't even bring up the fact that they only had 53 yards from their leading rusher, Brian Robinson, who did go down. And Sam Howell, I mean, the leading passer in the NFL, 127 yards, an interception, sacked him 3 times, left them with a QBR of 19.6. I mean, are you ridiculous? This is insane. This is what we've been praying for, a complete game experience. I have very little complaints. I have no complaints. You unfortunately had to see one of your starters go down on defense. Jerome Baker, somebody who's been with the team forever. That obviously you hate to see, but usually with these 5 things we learned videos, I start the video off with a negative if we lose and a positive if we win, and then I get into what actually really happened, because there's always room for improvement, and there definitely probably is room for improvement here. But I mean, virtually a perfect game. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I can't imagine we had that many penalties. Let me actually pull it up real quick, so I'm not just talking utter nonsense. Penalties, 2 penalties for 15 yards. I mean, that was an issue last year, especially those offensive penalties, delay of games, false starts. Had so many issues with that last year as the offense was building together. Didn't have really any penalties. Didn't have a single turnover. The rushing attack was good. We had a prolonged drive at the end with our backups. Everything you wanted to see against the Commanders, we got to see. I have literally 0 complaints. I enjoyed the game. It was a fun watch. It was refreshing. Didn't have to worry at all in the entire game. Let me know what your thoughts of the game were down below. Again, we're gonna try. We're gonna try to be more regular with our uploads. Again, meant to have a video up yesterday. It didn't happen. So for that, we apologize. Live stream Wednesday, like always. Look out for that. You'll be probably hearing from Donovan tomorrow. Appreciate y'all very much for watching. While you're still here, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Y'all know what to do. Have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody.